This is still indicating that the rate of decline has slowed. Now we might get some shenanigans. So here we go. All right, so let's try and think this through. So this is problem solving. So here's a whole lot of buying. Now, is this setting a trap by then sucking out liquidity? So watch for a ratchet back up. These longs might be happy to sit offside for a couple of ticks. So watch for a quick reflex, but they're only going to do it if they can get some shorts in. So they're happy to be offside for a couple of ticks if it leads to then putting fuel into the market to get their kick up. Now, if it's going to tie in with that event, then they'll want to delay it. Then you might ask the question, well, hang on, why don't they just start it early? But if they're linking something to an event, then they're not necessarily the main reason that event happens. So they want to benefit from that event that someone else is also involved with. Just like we don't move markets, we look for what others do and then look to join. So for me, that's the kickback. You saw the liquidity get sucked out. Some shorting came in. These guys actually use that as an opportunity to actually load up a bit more and then kick it back the other way. So now they're on side. Boom, step one, isn't it? And then someone knows what they're doing, or that's another part of it that I've got to try to consider. That was pretty weak, really. Like, where's the size on the long side? So it might be the same guys just offing a bit of their long to try to get more selling in. So they would have got selling there. So they had that and not terribly much else. Then they got a decent chunk there as well. And then they come and ramp in and get long. You can see just in the business that's been done in here, right, which encompasses everything below 94.5, it's predominantly long. That's what I'm saying. The size is on the long side. We're seeing 50s. There's 80. I count that as probably the same player. So 50 and 50 and 50, 50. See how you can start to pick up someone's trading? So someone's building a big long position. Now, I might be wrong because it's a hypothesis. But if I start to see this actually working out, then I can go, okay, well, I just saw someone get in several hundred lots, which in the current environment's quite large, probably know what they're doing. They're looking like they're trying to time it with the clock. So why did they start early? Well, now it makes sense to me because they wanted to get not 50, but they want to get 500 lots or 250, whatever the amount is. Now, see this? 15s? There they are there. And then they covered it. All right, so that was a loss leader. If you just really study it, you can start to work out what others are doing. There's no way I could do this in the ES because that thing just rotates by the thousands constantly. But, this is all about trading an instrument where you can have an edge. All right, so rate of depreciation has slowed. Have seen someone accumulate about 250 lots, also play both sides to try and entice more selling. That selling might have been there just to get any bids to back off. So that if they're starting to sense that the strength in the depth here and they don't want to pay up, that's done on purpose to try and scare out any buyers. As I said, this is just me hypothesizing. I don't know these traders. I'm trying to work out an angle. So we got a whole bunch of multiple failures in here, which I was able to just throw on a bit of a probe using this to lean on. The multiple failures just happened in here. If you're looking at a smaller time frame, I'll just show you. See where I had it marked up? So I just banged in some long there. All right, so I'm on side with my probe. So far, it kind of looks like it's working, doesn't it? So what's the next thing? Well, I want to see it work even further so that I can bang some size on. So now it's a case of just seeing further evidence that this is actually playing out or evidence to the contrary. So this trade is worked out before I actually went and entered. So now we're coming back. So I've got an area that I work from to get in on my probe, but that could fail, in which case I'll exit. So if you think back to when I was able to get in early on a long and then was looking for the area to add, and it just took too long, didn't it? And then it shot up and then rolled over and I went, that's it, I'm out. So I'm very mindful of the amount of time it spends here because a theme of late is how long it spends in this next phase. So here's the first sort of move up. Now, to me, the clock's running out on this, regardless of the event that I talk about that occurs in a few minutes' time now. This can't spend too much time in here for me to have confidence in holding it. We're inside the last couple of minutes until we tick over an hour after the ASX closes, which is the catalyst. So I'm a tick offside on my initial probe into the market. Now, something we do have to think about is in the current environment, things are swinging about a little bit more in this phase of trades because of the lack of participation given the time of year, and also that historically we're now in a very low acceptance area. So I have to factor that in. So where did we last trade, and look in the spread now? So there's some signs of some absolute attempts to shaft some traders, basically. Here's the last traded price and here's the offer. So remember, we've been talking about the antics of market makers, etc., in this environment, and why it's so important to trade around the edges. Otherwise, you become the victim of what you just witnessed. So you don't buy when something moves up like that, because then the reverse can happen with that spread and you're offside by a whack. So not unique to this situation. It's a current theme that is applicable each day that we trade, something that's been in place since we moved to the 5th decimal place. So we're 1 hour after the ASX close. Here's some antics again. Look at this size on the sell side, and then sucker liquidity out and push prices back up. It's designed to catch out traders. So we trade down here and then you saw the spread. So now you've got a whole bunch of traders offside, and someone has managed to get themselves 250 lots and they're onside, and they've got some selling here starting to accumulate short positions. And we already know that this group here, this 50 lot, 60, 80, 90, you can see the distribution here, but look at all the selling at 93 just very recently, not when we take into consideration when that 250 lot went through. Now, in explaining that, I've obviously taken my eye off the DOM, so I need to kind of get back to it. So I sat through a tick of heat, a tick and a half it actually was at its worst, but my rationale, which was working off this area, that didn't break down. I'll show you, it's here. So this is what I showed you before. Here we are in this area. Look at these multiple failures there. That is a great opportunity now to get an add in. So not right up here, but try to get it an order a little bit lower down if I can. So I've joined the bid at my price, not going to trade the price that's advertised right now. So what other things am I looking at? Remember, we're taking a whole lot of things into consideration. One is check out, let me show you this view. Look at value, intraday, short term. Just quickly show you this. Okay, so here's my probe, hold, add. What else am I aware of? This, look at all of that. So here's this buyer that we know about. We just watch that buyer come in and accumulate. And look what we're trading into as far as inventory is concerned. The really short bias there. My add is on side, and I would want the market to move again before I start to even put more size on. Now we've got multiple failed attempts to move higher here. So I'm going to actually see if I can take some out. Well, how's that for timing? And I still will do that just because that was a very fast move, and I might be able to take some out here and then go back at a slightly better price. And if not, well, so be it. But I did it because these types of spikes, we've witnessed how they've been behaving of late. See how there was no real volume on that spike? So I took some here. I don't want to shortchange myself by getting out too early, but I'm seeing a lot of failures here, as you can see. Now I'm back to, okay, well, if it spends a whole heap of time in here, just how much time? Back to wanting to trade, combine a theme with a theme. And what did we get at the 1 hour after the ASX closed? The change of direction. So some more aggression here on the buy side, but the good thing is we're getting some selling in as well. And we know that we're about to shift into a lot of short inventory. So if we can kick up, so this area here, if we start to push ahead, I can launch off this knowing that there's some new selling fuel in and get back with my sizing again. I'm starting to get to the point of taking more off because of the time that's passed, because of the current period of time that this takes. So I'm doing that off feel. I better get the stop clock on this. So just going back a step, I mentioned a couple of things too. So this is where I want to look for getting some size back on. So I managed to get back in where I got out. Here we go. Out, back in. After this event, I reset the clock, and that's the mental clock, and off we go again. Now, what do we know? We're starting to move into a heap of shorts. Now, I do need to get through this, but let's have a think about when was this established? Like, it wasn't just now. So let's just think back. And what's the time now? And what's the session? And what's the likelihood of this being relevant? Okay, now I can do what? Now I've got enough evidence to suggest, okay, and there's a whole bunch of failures. And also notice that I've had to speed up because the market is now starting to speed up as well. So I'll look now to join the bid and see if I can get another add-on. Same again, have to think about how long we can spend here before I've got to go, nah, it's got to roll over. Sufficient selling fuel coming in. Okay, we've spoken about this theme, these pulling of orders, but this one got pulled quite a time ago. So I'm not too concerned about this one, or degrees of concern. So if it had happened, like let's say we'd moved up and then I'd seen it being pulled straight away, I would have just taken money off straight away. So what do you know about that little push down? Okay, hardly any acceptance. Okay, that's okay then, because even though the market was basically saying to shorts, look, we're rolling over, no one really hit it, did it? So there's no one around to sell the market, and we know we've got plenty of short positions that we're moving into. Okay, so this is like a bit of a wall here, isn't it? This transition area. As I did say though, when was it established? What's the relevance of that area to traders right now? Okay, here's the game. Look at this. Suck out of liquidity. Some sellers come in. What we really need to see is some short covering. So now I need to keep an eye on the numbers here to show that we've got the fuel in the form of covering shorts to keep driving price upwards. Isn't that interesting? Did a business there, Y, even number, 7,600. So I mentioned before, pace has picked up. So what's going to happen is I haven't yet seen any genuine covering, but what I'm thinking about is that the pace has picked up, and at some point this pace is going to make it difficult for decision making, because decisions will need to be made under perceived pressure, because the market is pushing around more quickly. Some of the way these little moves even in half ticks are occurring. Notice what I mentioned about this order in the depth map and when they pulled it. So that was important, right? So we've had 2 failed attempts now at 76 even. Now I'm not too fussed about that at this stage, because as far as I'm concerned, we've still got further to go. But what I should have done is front run that with an order into it the first time it got there. And so that's a mistake. So what I did do is make sure I quickly took some out after I recognized my mistake. Okay, now we've got data event. We've got a press conference from the Bank of Japan. So we're closing in on that. We might go into more of a complex phase here. Also notice how on a very short-term perspective, how value has slowed increasing. So you can see that from a management perspective, I need to think about getting some more off, which I did, and poorly, because I got it at a low tick compared to where it is now. Okay, so we should move into an area where I've got an order, which we did, which I'll show you in a moment. Right, so now we've got what? Covering. But interestingly, you've got buyers who are happy to keep participating. Now, look at this. With all of that buying and this gap here, let's expect potentially a little bit of a move down. So that should probably take us down to this area, 601. Yeah, there we go. And then potentially launch again. So with these pending data, either it works in the form of an aggressive continuation upwards, or the reverse. So I'm looking now to see potentially what this is going to be, or whether that move that we just saw, this little push up, whether that was it. Right, so this is some clues. See these attempts here and no selling business coming in. Right, it's pretty light down here at 01, or 01 actually got hit just below. Now, what's interesting to me is just above us, look at it, it's a pretty even distribution of long versus short. So, you know, we might struggle even to get through that. It's going to possibly be a bit of a grind. So I have no interest, therefore, in adding in this area. I'd want to be clear of it. So we can see that we've just slowed down now as we wait for this data event to pass. This has been an opportunity for me to take some money in there, leave some on. Where I'm interested in adding is if we can get through this pretty even distribution of buying and selling. So I see this move into here as being a bit of a grind. So what are some of the markers that are important to us above this area? Well, we've seen a lot of anchoring today to CME VWAP. We also know right now that there is so much short inventory that of all of that short inventory, the next group, which is this area where I said we'd grind, if we start to move above, that group is going to be offside. Now, just because it's a reasonable quantity of traders, that is surely going to result in some of them, and sufficiently enough, to be offside and wanting to cover, hence putting pressure on price because it's into then a low acceptance area, i.e. an area where price could really take off. And then it starts to put pressure on the next group. Right? So that's the domino effect that we may well get. So notice this push down, it didn't really continue. So even though you saw price go down, where did value go? Didn't follow it. So we might get, and I said, I don't know, I'm trying to read this all real time and just trying to think about everything that can take place. So it doesn't surprise me that we just pushed up and then hit the wall again, because as I said, this is likely to be a bit of a grinding area and you've got a data event coming up shortly. So no front running this area, because you can see all these highs, with the exception of this, because that's covering. All of these attempts here are attempts to get longs to buy the highs. So I just took some out there. I wasn't able to successfully add to my position at a level I was happy with. We'll see if we can do that now. Encouraging to see this short selling. I just need to work out why. What would motivate those traders? What are they looking at? Because I want to find out and determine if I know their reason, I then can evaluate whether I think their reason is a good one, for want of a better description, or one that I think is actually going to send them into a trap trade. And of course, because we've got Europe coming up, the Open of Europe, that's just another event to put clock pressure on short traders. I still can't work out what the rationale was for this shorting around here. I want to give some traders the benefit of the doubt, not just, it's too high, or something as basic as that, or doesn't look like it's going to go further to the upside. You did see them under the pump a bit, and as a result of that, so there's me taking some money there. I went back in there. That's the danger of doing this, is that it takes my mouse away from the ladder. All right, see this selling up here? So why is that? Clearly front running what seems to be a session VWAP. Now, how much of a role, though, did session VWAP play in the HKE session? I've talked about the theme of this being returning. And so when I look back for Hong Kong session, yeah, it's definitely been in play. But that session's coming to the end, and you've also got traders who need to be flat before Europe. So I understand the rationale for going short there, but I think that the timing of it, based on what's coming next, etc., is probably more likely to lead to a trap. More likely does not mean it definitely will. I have to be open to the fact that these guys know what they're doing. So I'll just show you while that ad's on side. VWAP as of the commencement of HKE, and there, here. So you can see the role that it's played. That's not convincingly through, but now we're starting to push into CME VWAP. So that's really what I wanted to use as my exit, and very, very near, obviously, where all the business has been traded today. Right, so we're pretty extended now on that second leg, aren't we? This is where I've been basically getting out as part of this anchoring to CME VWAP. Now, I still would consider additional long trades, but not until we're into the European session. So I'm going to hang around with a little bit just to see if we can put what I haven't yet seen is some final desperation into the next session. We've obviously seen a little bit of it. Okay, there we go. Final little push. And you can see some acceptance at this area. And there we go. That's a chunk of short covering there. So that's me now flat. So here's what it looks like. All right. So this was the grind period. I tried to get on along here. Obviously, it didn't come back to it. Took some money out here on that pop. Back in. This is where I wanted to benefit from the next leg, if you like, taking money out here. And then finally, just the last bit of icing on the cake, I guess you could say, for the push into CME VWAP. With that, I'm going to call it a week.